Welcome, everyone. We're glad you could join us for today's presentation on how cybersecurity insurance protects your practice. I'm Brenda Van Nest, and I'm the Director of Membership Development at the Medical Society of the State of New York. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Medical Society, or MSNY as we're often called, we're the only professional association in New York State representing physicians in all areas of practice and in all practice environments. We promote quality, accessible, affordable, physician-led healthcare. If you're not already a member or your physician's not already a member, I encourage you to join at msny.org. That's mssny.org. We do understand how little free time everybody has in their day. So with that in mind, today's presentation will be about 20 minutes. During the presentation, you can post your questions in the chat, and we'll answer as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. We work with many partners, all of whom have been carefully vetted on your behalf. Today's webinar, Protect Your Practice with Cyber Insurance, is with our partner, Sellers Insurance. Some of the topics we'll be discussing include why your practice needs cyber insurance, what to look for in high-quality cyber insurance policy, preventative services provided by cyber insurers, and how to best position yourself when applying for coverage. So with that, let me introduce you to Kathleen Sellers. Kate is Vice President of Charles J. Sellers and Company, Inc., a family-owned insurance agency. They were founded in 1920 and specialize in insuring professionals through membership associations. Kate is a graduate of Canisius College and Duke Law School, and previously worked as a federal district court law clerk and a litigation attorney. She is licensed for all lines of insurance and holds the designation of Chartered Life Underwriter, CLU, and Registered Health Underwriter, RHU. She lives in the city of Buffalo with her husband, Trey, and their 3 daughters. When she's not busy with her family and the family business, Kate is an avid reader and enjoys solving crossword puzzles. Kate, it's all yours.
Thank you, Brenda, for that nice introduction. I'll jump right in. I can get my slides to advance. There we go. So I wanted to start off by just briefly describing some of the main cyber risks that healthcare businesses face. Really, the last couple of years, the biggest issue has been cybercrime. Unfortunately, healthcare is the most attacked sector, was the most attacked sector in 2022, according to the FBI. And of course, healthcare is a target for cyber criminals because of all of the information that medical practices have in their systems. Personally identifiable information like social security numbers and dates of birth, personal health information, of course, and then financial information like health insurance, ID numbers. All of that information is a treasure trove for cyber criminals, making healthcare more of a target. The pandemic, among the many ill effects it brought us, it led to a big spike in cybercrime. Cyber attacks were up 31% from 2020 to 2021. Some of the reasons for that were more people working remotely, businesses using new technologies to deal with the pandemic. All of these things kind of opened doors and created opportunities for cyber criminals. And of course, they were right there to take advantage of those new vulnerabilities. And we've seen just a huge spike in cybercrime over the last few years. The biggest issue with cybercrime, especially since 2020, has been ransomware attacks. This is where somebody hacks into your systems, encrypts all of your data, and then demands a ransom payment in exchange for unencrypting your systems. Or possibly even worse, this is called cyber extortion, threatens to reveal information from your systems if the ransom isn't paid. So unfortunately, there has been a big spike in ransomware attacks over the last few years. And, you know, we hear about these on the news. A lot of times you hear about them in the healthcare space in connection with big organizations like hospitals or health insurers. But 70% of ransomware attacks are aimed at smaller organizations, organizations with fewer than 1,000 employees. And small businesses are targeted by cyber criminals because cyber criminals know that a smaller organization has fewer resources to spend on security and cyber defenses. So even though those maybe aren't publicized as much, ransomware attacks are a huge issue for small businesses. And often when there is a ransomware attack, the big decision is whether or not to pay the ransom. The FBI, of course, discourages the payment of ransoms because it encourages cyber criminals to keep requesting them. But that's really a decision for a professional cyber incident response team. There are people who specialize in this field, know a lot about the various forms of ransomware attacks and the actors in that space. And they are in the best position to decide if paying a ransom is advisable or not in any particular situation. There was a 2022 study from Sophos, which is a cybersecurity vendor, said that in healthcare, actually that's the sector with the highest percentage of ransom requests being paid. 61% were paid, with the average payment being just under $200,000. Interestingly though, only about 4% of businesses that pay the ransom are able to retrieve all of their data. And there, of course, is no guarantee that the hackers won't keep a copy of your information. So obviously a ransomware attack is a very stressful and concerning event. We've seen it with a number of our medical practice customers that they've experienced those attacks, and it just is a really hard thing to deal with. There are other types of cybercrime. Another one that we're seeing pretty frequently is funds transfer fraud, which is when a cyber criminal tricks somebody into transferring money to them, posing as a legitimate enterprise. Unfortunately, that is also a very common form of cybercrime. You can also have your own employees, if they become unhappy for whatever reason, disclose information from your systems. That's another way that breaches occur. And then there are also data breaches that can occur that can hurt your business, but they can occur in non-criminal ways. We've seen employees make mistakes because we're all human. Even the best employees and best trained staff can make mistakes that lead to the disclosure of information to people to whom disclosure was not intended. So all of these different types of data breaches are risks faced by healthcare businesses. And they can lead to a lot of different kinds of losses. Obviously in healthcare, one of the biggest issues, if you can't access your systems, is the threat to patient care. Will you be able to take care of your patients if you can't get to their records? That's a huge and scary issue. And then there are lots of financial losses that can flow from any type of a cyber event. Normally, the immediate aftermath of a ransomware attack or other event can involve expenses like the need to hire specialized IT professionals, consulting with lawyers who specialize in privacy law about what your obligations are in the aftermath of an event. We've also seen a lot of our customers have had a good amount of staff overtime when something like this happens because people need to work more to deal with the fallout of something like a ransomware attack. Another big cost is downtime. Approximately 44% of healthcare organizations take up to a week to recover from a ransomware attack. 25% take a month. A lot of this has to do with how good your backup is and how long it takes to restore your information from backup, if that's the route you take. But obviously, any day in which you're not seeing your patients, you're going to have a hit to your revenue. So that's one of the big losses we see in a cyber attack. There are also a lot of laws at both the federal and state levels that require the notification of people who may be impacted by any kind of a data breach. So if your patient's personal information is believed to have been breached, you need to notify them. There are obviously costs involved there. You may also need to offer them credit monitoring. If you pay the ransom, that's obviously a big expense, or can be a big expense. Another area of potential losses is that if you have an event like this, you're opening yourself up or you have been opened up to liability claims. If a patient has been harmed, if a business you do business with has been harmed by what happened on your systems, they may sue you. So that liability exposure is another area of concern. And then, of course, as you all know, healthcare is a very highly regulated industry. So there are often regulatory investigations that flow from a cyber event. Regulators may want to look into what your cyber defenses were prior to the event and how you handled it. So that can come with legal fees and potential fines. So all of those losses, we have seen those play out with our customers. We, on the business insurance side, primarily insure medical practices. And we have seen many of our customers have ransomware attacks. It's just one example. We had a small practice on the western side of the state that had a ransomware claim last summer. And that claim is still open, meaning that the losses are not completely wrapped up yet. At this point, about $300,000 has been paid on that claim. The ransom was paid in that situation. We've had other customers who've had this happen, and in this situation, they had a backup, but the backup unfortunately was also affected by the ransomware attack. So it was not usable. So the decision was made to pay the ransom in order to just get access to the practice's data. So the ransom itself was about $200,000. And then there has been another $100,000, almost in additional losses from this ransomware attack, including the costs of having IT people come in and investigate what happened, and then making notifications to patients. Another claim we saw was a funds transfer fraud claim. And that one, it was a pretty good sized medical group where human resources received an email from somebody. The HR staff person believed it was one of the physicians employed by the group, directing HR to deposit pay in a different bank account. And this person in HR made that change to the payment, unfortunately. This went on for several months. The same HR person then got another email from someone posing as that physician, again, saying, actually, can you change my account information again? The HR person got suspicious, reached out to the doctor, who realized that he had not received any pay in his account in several months. And that, those funds were gone. There was no way to recover them. Their cyber insurance policy paid out over $55,000 on that claim. I would say at this point in our agency, for our customers who have cyber insurance policies, we've probably seen more money paid out in claims than we've seen taken in premium. So it really is an important coverage to have. I always like to point out whenever the discussion of cyber insurance claims come up that this is an area where claims are required to be reported to the insurance company very quickly before any expenses are incurred. The insurance company wants to get in there with its own vetted experts and help you mitigate losses because that mitigates their losses too. And I always advise our customers, these policies all come with a hotline number that you call if there's an event, and to keep that number, keep it in your phone, keep it written down somewhere that's easily accessible. You don't want to have it only available on your computer. Of course, you can call your agent too. We're always happy to help, but it's a good idea to have that hotline number somewhere where it's easy to access, because the insurance company will get right in there and help you, and they're available 24/7. So with all of these scary cyber threats out there, fortunately, there is very good insurance coverage available. We don't hear this as much anymore, but certainly, 4 or 5 years ago when we were selling this, our customers would sometimes say to us, I don't think I need cyber insurance because I outsource my IT and they do all these things to make sure that I can't be the subject of a cyber attack, and they're taking care of it. And I have an EMR, and in our contract, they're supposed to keep the data safe. But I think people have really come around to see that these cyber events are less of an if than a when they're going to happen, and that the best way to approach it is to have strong cyber defenses in place and have cyber insurance. It seems like these cyber criminals are just constantly a step ahead. I know I just got an alert from one of our cyber insurers saying that there's a new malware out there coming through Outlook that can infect your computer even if you don't open the email, which to me was really scary. We spent a lot of time drilling into our staff, you know, don't open suspicious emails. This is what an email looks like that you shouldn't open. Apparently now, you know, this, like I said, the cyber criminals are always one step ahead and coming up with something new. So really the way to approach it is to have those cyber defenses in place and then purchase cyber insurance so that you're fully protected. A good cyber insurance policy bundles together a whole lot of different coverages. Some of them are considered first-party coverages. They make you whole for losses you directly incur to your own business. And then there are third-party coverages. Those are liability coverages. So if somebody else is hurt because of what happens at your business, and they sue you, your third-party coverages kick in. So among the first party coverages, I'm just going to go over these kind of briefly. One of the most important is they all come with coverage for that immediate breach response and remediation. And they have panels of vetted IT experts, vetted attorneys who they will put you in contact with to help you through like the immediate aftermath of one of these events. That's so valuable. And there's usually, you know, if we sell $1 million policy, there's usually $1 million of coverage for that breach response. I sometimes compare that to a homeowner's insurance policy. I had a fire in my home maybe 8 years ago, and we called Travelers, my insurance company, and they put us in touch with our claims guy who had the number for the people who board up your windows, the number for the people who bring in the giant fans to dry out your house. This is the same service, but the cyber equivalent. They have all the people ready there to help you with all the things that you would not know who to call on your own. So that's a very important part of these policies. There's also business interruption coverage for those losses that you could incur if you can't see your patients. That's very important, and that's been a pretty big element of some of the claims we've seen. And then there's also coverage for helping you restore your systems and your data, which can be very expensive. Sometimes even if you have good backup, that's an expensive and time-consuming process. And then, as I mentioned, there can be coverage for a ransom payment if you have a cyber extortion claim, and coverage for losses for other types of cyber crime as well. For the liability coverages, for all of these coverages, one of the most important things provided is defense cost coverage, which means if you're sued and you'll need to hire a lawyer to defend you, it covers those costs, the cost of hiring a lawyer, which for sometimes with these claims, that's the biggest expense, is your cost of defense. But it applies to different types of claims that could be brought against you. If somebody sues you because the event on your system threatens the security of their system, there's coverage. Privacy liability coverage. So if one of your patients' information is disclosed and they suffer harm because of it and sue you, there's coverage for that type of a claim. There's defense costs for regulatory investigations, which I think for a lot of regulatory investigations, that's going to be your main cost. So all of those coverages are all packaged together in a strong cyber insurance policy. and really can be the difference between a cyber event being catastrophic and just being, a bump in the road that you can handle. Another nice aspect of a good cyber insurance policy is it comes with a lot of risk management services, because the insurance company wants to help you prevent something from occurring, or if something does occur, to mitigate your losses. So these policies come with a pretty big suite of resources, either at no cost or low cost for policyholders. They send cyber security alerts, as I mentioned, the one I just saw from one of our cyber insurers, to let you know about a new patch that needs to be applied or other action that needs to be taken. They provide you with educational resources for your staff. A lot of the resources we use to train our staff on cybersecurity are from our cyber insurer. They also do external scans of your systems. They do this when you apply, and then they continue to do it while you're covered. And they're doing that to spot vulnerabilities that a cyber criminal could also spot from the outside. So when you apply for coverage, that's done, and they'll tell you, we see these open doors that you need to close before we'll cover you. And then they'll continue to monitor that, which obviously is a terrific service to help you try to not have a cyber event in the first place. The application process used to be easier for cyber insurance before the recent kind of spike in cybercrime. The applications now are a few pages long, and pretty much every business owner we work with enlists the assistance of their IT person to help them complete these applications, because the cyber insurance company wants to know, are you taking reasonable steps that any business owner would take to protect your systems? Do you have virus detection and things like that to try to keep yourself safe? You also have to answer questions about your revenues, the size of your practice. Those are how those policies are rated. And fortunately, there really are quite a few very good insurance companies offering these policies that package together a ton of coverage. And we work with several companies that have healthcare specific cyber policies, which are nice. They throw in some little extra coverages that are applicable more for healthcare businesses. 2022 was a really rough year for cyber insurance because of that increase in cyber crimes. So we did see premiums increase pretty much across the board in 2022, and some less favorable terms being offered. I think the general consensus in 2022 was that maybe some of the cyber insurance was a little bit underpriced to begin with. The good news is in that 2023, the market does seem to be stabilizing, and we're not seeing those big premium increases, which we're happy about. So it's still a situation where you're going to be asked more detailed questions, but you still can get very, very good coverage. And if you don't have cyber insurance yet and you get a proposal, you'll want to look at things like how much coverage. Most of our medical practice customers, unless they're quite a big practice, will take $1 million limits of coverage. That's usually sufficient. Of course, you're going to look at the premium, the deductibles. The deductible is, how much of that risk are you going to retain for yourself? There's also an issue with retroactivity. Some policies will cover you for things that happened farther back before your policy was in place that you could be sued about now. The best thing to look for is called full prior acts coverage. And then you need to look at the exclusions and limitations on the policy. These policies do vary. We had a cyber insurer that we had placed quite a few policies with prior to 2020. Post 2020 has put some new limitations on their cyber insurance, including things like if you don't take certain steps, like applying software patches and you have a breach, if that patch has been available for more than 45 days, you do not get full coverage. So we moved all of our customers away from that carrier because there are still policies available that don't have those types of exclusions. that could hurt you if, something slips through the cracks. So it's important to look at what the exclusions and limitations are on the coverage. And then once you have coverage in place, each year when you go to renew the policy, you will be asked questions again about your security practices because of the nature of these cyber threats being evolving, and needing to update your security practices to stay current with the current threats. So there is a shorter renewal application, and we always look for those to see if the insurance companies have added or changed any terms. And with any insurance, including cyber insurance, it's a good idea when your policy renews every year to just think about, have your needs changed? Has your practice grown? Are there any reasons why you might be more vulnerable to cyber attacks and need to think about increasing your coverage? That is the end of my presentation, and I am happy to take any questions that anyone might have. Oh, Brenda, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Kate. Excuse me, and we do have a couple questions for you. First, am I required to have cyber insurance?
That's a good question. Unlike some insurance, like workers' compensation insurance, which the state requires you to have if you have employees, in most cases, there is no government body requiring you to carry cyber insurance. However, we are sometimes seeing our medical practice customers entering into contracts where the other party wants you to have cyber insurance. Some health insurers may want you to carry cyber insurance if you're going to be billing them. So it's important to keep an eye on what your contractual obligations are. And I would also say, maybe 5 to 8 years ago, we would have been telling people it's nice to have cyber insurance. Now, when somebody calls me and says, I'm opening a practice, what type of insurance do I need? Cyber insurance is on that list. Nobody's necessarily requiring you to have it, but you should have it.
And the big question, how much does it cost?
Yes, that depends on several factors. The biggest driver is the size of your practice. So the insurance companies will ask you for your annual revenues. That's their gauge of how big a practice you are and kind of a proxy for how much risk they think is entailed with covering you. For a smaller practice with a $1 million limit, you might find something in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. And it would go up from there. A bigger practice might see a $7,000, $8,000 premium. I can say that while the premiums aren't small, it's definitely a smaller cost than what an uninsured cyber event would cost you.
Great, thank you. That was lots of very valuable information. And I don't see any more questions. So on behalf of the Medical Society, thank you, Kate, for sharing your expertise and your time with us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us. Once it's ready, this question was asked previously. Once it's ready, we'll get the link to this webinar on our website, which is msny.org. That's mssny.org. Again, for those of you who are not members of the Medical Society, we hope you'll consider joining. Our members are a talented and diverse community of physicians who are here to help you navigate your career and your business. We hope to see you at the next Medical Society webinar. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.